Right now, I have the box office results pulled up for this weekend, and you can see that Snow White is the #1 movie in America during its opening weekend. And you just know that Disney's going to run with this fact for the next week to try to have new advertisements saying that this is the #1 movie in America. If you're paying attention to advertisements or what you see on social media, just get ready for that because it's going to happen. And I'm not going to take that away from them because that is a fact. Of course, they're going to leave out the fact that it's also releasing without much competition in theaters at this time right now. And also, they're not going to really point out how much money that they were needing to make because this was so expensive for them to make. They probably need to bring in close to $1 billion at the global box office in order to just break even. And with what they're making during this opening weekend, it's looking like this is pretty much a bomb right out of the gate. Snow White Bashful with $87.3 million global bow. Now, keep in mind, it says $87.3 million globally during its opening weekend. And this is underperforming considering just 5 days ago, also from Deadline, this article was saying it was expecting around $100 million during its opening weekend, saying $45 to $50 million of that will be from its domestic ticket sales. And also keep in mind that about a month or so before this projection came out, they were saying it would probably be around $65 million that it'll make during its opening weekend domestically. So it's looking like the actual ticket sales for this is underperforming to already their lowered expectations. Disney's live action take on Snow White has come in with the global launch of $87.3 million from 51 material international box office markets. The update of the classic 1937 animated grossed an estimated $44.3 million. Both domestic and overseas returns are below pre-weekend projections. And going back to this other article, so $45 million mark is what they were projecting on the low end before the weekend started. So yeah, as I was saying, it already underperformed their lowered expectations. The Rachel Zegler star, The Rachel Zegler star opened as the #1 non-local title in the majority of major overseas markets, as well as smaller ones across Europe. Snow White's debut was just 6% below Cinderella in like-for-like markets at current rates throughout Latin America. It was #1 in every market. Now, I can't remember when Cinderella came out. That was like 10 years ago, and they're saying it performed below Cinderella. If you adjust for inflation, then the results are truly devastating for this movie. There's a runaway ahead for the movie to play into holidays, but the opening begs the question, what's up, Doc? The 50 million plus hope for overseas ahead of the launch didn't materialize, in part because audiences didn't feel a sense of urgency. Note that it's unlikely any of the so-called controversy surrounding the film played a role. And that's also them not wanting to admit that the people who were bringing up the controversy and talking about all the stuff going on behind the scenes, they don't want to say that they actually had an impact on this. So they're trying to ignore that, even though they would try to also market at this in the lead up to the release of the movie, basically almost making it a culture war type thing. Like, oh, you don't want the chuds to win on this one, so you better go see the movie. And now that it failed, they're trying to almost backpedal and say like, oh, well, that had nothing to do with it whatsoever. I guess they have to save face. I'm not going to say one way or the other because I personally saw the movie. You could check out my review on the channel. And even though it was, I'm not going to say it was better than I expected because that's too complimentary to it. It's not the complete dumpster fire or anything like that, but the movie still isn't good. And Asia was challenging, although Snow White opened at #1 non-local pretty much across the board in the region. It was #2 non-local title in China, Korea, and Japan. China and Korea were not anticipated to put up big numbers, but Japan is typically more bullish on this kind of fare. Well, yeah, you get the idea. That's kind of all they really have right now. You can check back to see if the numbers have changed, but it's looking like this is going to be, if not the final results for the weekend, pretty close to the final results. Now, like I was saying before, this movie probably needs to make around $1 billion at the global box office in order to just break even, but that's realistically, if I was just to take them at their word in that they only spent $270 million only $270 million on this movie, And then you add in another $100 million for the print and advertising budget that has also been reported for it. So they're into this movie around $370 million. So if you were to double that, off the top of my head, $370 million times two, that's $740 million is what they need to make in order for this to just to break even. That's not looking good when they can't even crack $100 million during its opening weekend. Now, just to compare this to other previous Disney princess movies, a more recent one is Little Mermaid. That is the most recent one that they had come out. The opening weekend for that was just $95 million, and that's domestic, mind you. So domestically, during Little Mermaid's opening weekend, it made more money than what Snow White made during its entire globally during its opening weekend. And even then, the final box office result for that movie was around $570 million. Keep in mind, this was already declared a bomb at the global box office, and that had a budget of around $250 million reportedly. So if it's underperforming a movie that cost less to produce than what they spent on it, it's pretty safe to say that the movie is not going to be good. Now, also, one thing that is kind of in Snow White's favor, though, is, like I said, the reception to it wasn't completely disastrous. It wasn't good. I have Rotten Tomatoes pulled up, and you can see critics didn't like it. Audiences were a little bit more favorable, at least for the verified users. All audiences hated it. I already had that. So top critics absolutely hated it, and all audiences hated it. But as far as all critics and the verified users on there, it was lukewarm. But the thing about this movie is even Little Mermaid, the verified users for that was, I think, 93. So that wasn't enough to actually help propel Little Mermaid, because it had a pretty good opening week, and then it had a steep drop off. And if we see a steep drop off for Snow White, it's doubtful that it'll even be able to break $400 million mark on this. So that really won't even be enough to cover its budget and its print and advertisement budget for. So there's really no way that you can put it. I mean, unless this just had insane legs underneath it and just really goes at the box office, it's already a bomb just right now. It's not one of those things like, oh, we need to wait for the second weekend to see how it holds up at the box office, if it's going to have a steep drop or not. Like right now, I'm calling it, this movie is already a bomb. And I think Disney kind of understood that leading up to the release of it. That's why they're essentially playing defense on their premiere, not actually doing what they normally do, because they understood, like, this movie's not going to be good. We're trying to play defense, do what we can to mitigate the damage, but damage is already done on this movie. And part of it could be because of Rachel Zegler. I think that is a large factor here. I don't think that's the only factor. I think if she was actually a lot better in the press in the lead up to the movie, if there was no controversy surrounding her whatsoever, I still don't think that this movie would have done fantastic. Maybe it would have done better. I'm actually even willing to say that maybe it would have probably done a couple $100 million better than what this final result will end up being. But I don't think it's going to be fantastic. And that's because people just don't like how a lot of the live action remakes that Disney's been doing. They come across as basically just soulless cash grabs. There's no reason why they do it other than the fact that Disney's out of ideas and they're just trying to make something that they already have the rights to. And that's what this movie came across to me. And that's why a lot of the stuff in this movie, it just wasn't good. The best parts of it were when they were trying to basically just be the original movie. But even then, everything that they were doing in this one was just inferior to the original. One thing I said about it is, if you wanted to watch Snow White, just watch the original movie. You can watch that right now. You don't need to pay to see it in theaters. And I think that's the biggest problem with this movie, is it's so creatively bankrupt, and audiences are telling Disney right now, we don't want this kind of stuff. Now, whether or not Disney actually listens to the fans on that one remains to be seen. I mean, they can continue to double and triple down on this stuff, or they can start creating something original, or at least not being so disrespectful to their source material or the movies that basically created Disney in the first place, if they want to hope to actually get people to watch their movies in theaters. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Are these results surprising to you? I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, you are expecting as much, but did you think they were going to be lower, or did you think that it was going to do even better, but still not good? Comment below. And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.